My name is Patricia Stratford and I'm the Secretary of Carrickabraghy Castle Restoration Society. Carrickabraghy Castle is based in Inishowen in County Donegal, the most northerly point in Donegal. Carrickabraghy Castle was formed in August 2010 to save the O'Doherty Castle, that is Carrickabraghy. Situated on a wild and windswept promontory on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean, with views of the headlands of Donegal, from Malin Head to Fannet Head, Horn Head and even Tory Island on a clear day. While seemingly remote today, it was strategically important at a time when travel was often easier by sea. Another benefit of our wild and windswept location is that it's the northerly end of the Wild Atlantic Way, and Carrickabraghy Castle is now featured on the Heritage Trail of Inishowen, with tourists from all over the world now familiar with this O'Doherty Castle. Carrickabraghy Castle is a recorded national monument and is protected under the National Monuments Act 1930 to 2004. That might be 2014 now. Whilst of national significance, such protection does not provide the benefits of state ownership or state care. The Society owes a debt of gratitude to the McGlinchey Summer School and their subsequent proceedings. This magazine is now worth an absolute fortune. In their last publication in 2007, which was dedicated to Carrickabraghy Castle, the Summer School also commissioned reports from a conservation architect, a structural engineer and an archaeologist, and this formed the basis for the Society going forward. We were also especially lucky in that the chair and one of the founders of the McGlinchey Summer School, namely Marius Harkin, he's in the audience, green jumper, beard, also agreed to become the chair of Carrickabraghy Castle Restoration Society. Just to demonstrate what a ruinous state Carrickabraghy Castle was in, here is a view from the north and another view from the southeast. You can just about see the remains of the round tower. Although there is only the remains of a square keep and round tower, Carrickabraghy Castle was a much larger complex, as shown in the Holler Parsons map here of 1661. And the detail shows a square tower placed in the centre of a bawn, surrounded by a wall with mural towers. While stony fragments of the bawn wall and one of the mural towers is still evident on the site, the apparent accuracy of the map demonstrates the possible wide extent of this archaeological site. Not only was Carrickabraghy Castle strategically important, it was also historically important. The occupation of Inishowen by the O'Doherty clan was consolidated with castles at Burt, Inch, Buncrana and Carrickabraghy, which was built in the 16th century. The ill-fated rebellion of Sir Cahir O'Doherty, which was planned at Carrickabraghy, brought an end to the O'Doherty clan domination of Inishowen, and soon Chichester, the Lord Lieutenant of Ireland and representative of the British Crown, began the plantation of Ulster. The Society's plan was to take a phased approach, with phase one being the conservation of the keep and phase two the round tower. Like all good plans, this was to change. Financial. We received a grant of 5,000 from the Heritage Council, which paid for the rectified photography for recording the building. That's very detailed photography. That was about 2,500 then. It's probably a lot more at this time. And also the remainder went towards drawing up plans for the conservation work of Carrickabraghy Castle. In 3 years, we raised over 34,000 by fundraising. A lot of hard work, but helped by involving the local community. The majority of our funding, approximately some 185,000, came from the Leader programme, and that was administered by the Inishowen Development Partnership in Carndona. Without that financial support from Leader, this project would not have happened. Our committee. There were originally 13 members on our totally voluntary committee, and I'm glad to say that we still have 12 members today. We held monthly minuted meetings, and while the initial meetings did drag on, we got ourselves organised, and all our meetings had an agenda and a time limit. As you can imagine, we enjoyed lively debate. And it was sometimes heartening that we held these meetings in a local hotel so we could retire to the bar afterwards. We had a good mix of skills, with members coming from business, IT, academic, tourism, financial, and one member who was brilliant at organising dances. As you can hear from my accent, I'm not from Donegal, and I would recommend that all committees have at least one outsider on their team. I didn't come with any baggage, and I wasn't afraid of offending anyone, apparently. Our fundraising. A fundraising campaign began in earnest at the start of 2011, and by Christmas of that year we had raised up to 10,000. We also had to show Leader that we had money in the bank. It's no point going to Leader and saying, oh, look, I'm sure we can, get the money in. They have to have evidence, and they need a bank statement from you. So we'd raised, the society had raised that 10,000, and that was mainly from local functions and from generous subscriptions by friends of Carrickabraghy at home and abroad. Dances were a great way of fundraising. People in Inishowen love dancing, and so this was an obvious choice. We also had a committee member who was brilliant at organising dances. For instance, at Christmas, she would know that we won't have a New Year's dance, we'll have it on the 28th of December, because people will be fed up with Christmas, they've got cabin fever and they want to get out and they're ready to spend money. On average, we raised, lowest possible amount was about 2,000 after all expenses from our dances. So it's finding out what works in your area. The local community of artists also donated paintings for sale, and our art raffle, with the help of our chair, Marius Harkin, raised a great sum of money. Also, the O'Doherty diaspora worldwide, but especially in America, also donated much needed funds. In 2012, do you remember the gathering in 2013? Dim and distant memory. Well, we decided we would do it about 6 months before anyone else, and we decided to do our own gathering and brought together the residents of the Isle of Doe, where Carrickabraghy Castle is situated, for a photograph and refreshments. And on that afternoon alone, we raised 1,300, and it was gladly given. We appreciated every euro that came our way, and we showed our appreciation. And it's sometimes the donations of the odd 10 and 20 euros that really builds up the kitty. Our project team, and we've heard a lot about the professionals involved here, and we couldn't have even begin to start this project without the professionals. Richard Crumlish, our archaeologists, consulting engineer Paul Doherty, Duncan McLaren of Daedalus Architecture, builder and stonemason John and Seamus Doherty, and National Monuments. We were very lucky with our project team, and all of them, if not based locally, had a local connection. I've also included National Monuments as part of the team, as without their say-so, nothing can happen. Also, the majority of our team were known to National Monuments for the quality of their work, and this really eased things greatly. I come from many, many years ago, a long time ago, I used to work in the IT industry, and we always used to say consultants would never get sacked if they selected IBM. And again, you might want to look at employing somebody local and somebody young. This is an area where you need experienced people on your project team. E-tendering. We were all new to e-tendering, but because the building work formed the majority of the costs, we had to comply with this process. In our case, our consulting engineer, Paul Docherty, acted as the project manager and prepared all the tender documents that had to be uploaded onto the system, and that was 6 in all. And we really designed a noddy guide. All our project tendering documents had arrows showing put beams here. It was, I could have practically built it after looking at this castle. I also worked closely with Paul as I had experience of tender documents when I worked in the IT industry. The rest of our quotations from the conservation architect, archaeologist, engineer, printer and sign maker were selected from a manual process tendering. The sums at the initial phase meant that we didn't have to go through the e-tender process, but the rules change all the time. When we were going through this process, we thought the rules were changing every week, and sometimes they were. I could spend a whole day talking to you about e-tendering. Suffice to say that there are at least 2 conferences each year in Dublin about the same subject. Building relationships. I think we've heard earlier on from all the speakers about this area. I would recommend building relationships with these bodies on the assumption that you have dealings with them. I would like to give Joseph Gallagher, the Heritage Officer in Donegal, a big thank you. Joe does an amazing job considering the size of the county he has to cover. National Monuments. Our chair, Marius Harkin, who lives in Dublin but with a family home in Inishowen, was able to attend National Monuments meetings. We ensured that they were aware of our progress, and this relationship was to prove useful when we required additional funding. National Monuments were able to put forward a case to the Department of the Environment at the time that ensured that such funding was made available to us. And, Inishowen Development Partnership, who administered the Leader Programme in Carndona in Inishowen, I have to say a big thank you to Andrew Ward and his team, Anne Sperrin and Gillian Colgan, but especially Anne Sperrin, who provided endless support. From the beginning, the local community took a great interest in our plans and became stakeholders in this ambitious heritage project, and they, supported all our events and activities. And talking of building relationships, they come into play when you make a claim to leader. The vulgar subject, getting your hands on the money. Mistakenly, we had assumed that you could draw money down. That is not the case. When you've paid out all the money, we had to furnish IDP with copy invoices, signed receipts, copy cheques, bank statements showing sums claimed having been cleared. We also included any reports from archaeologists, architects, etc., plus short progress reports. Just an example, if you forget to copy the cheque, we were with Bank of Ireland, it takes Bank of Ireland at least 10 days or 7 to 10 days to send you a cheque, which means that holds up your claim to the department by probably up to something like 2 weeks. When you've got a builder looking for 30,000, I mean, you're hiding in the supermarket, you don't want to see these people. These are local people and you owe them money. So it's important to make sure that you've got all the information. I have just put an example up of a cover sheet I put in with each claim. And remember, I've got all the documentation right. And as you can see, I have got the date of the invoice we're claiming for, the payee, the description, the gross amount, VAT, the net amount, cheque number, date cleared, and invoice number. This is something, again, you can discuss with your administrators of Leader. How do you want us to present the information? I was told that, my information went in and it was always very clear and well laid out. Now, you know what it's like. If something is easy to read, it's going to go to the top of the pile, or so we had assumed, and it seemed to work for us. So make it as clear as possible when you're claiming the money. This is my must-have list that I would recommend that you have. Obviously, you have to have a budget. Have all your, and keep all these things on file. Have a big file beside you, because someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Seamus mentioned earlier, that, you know, there might be inspections of your work. Planning permissions, land valuations. We had an agreement for lease. We weren't sure that we would go ahead with this project. An agreement for lease is valid for 10 years, and it has the same legal aspects as a full lease. We had a constitution, letters of support from museums and other like bodies, historic evidence, a press release folder, and I would encourage you to appoint a photographer on your committee who is not only good at taking photographs but has the time to take the photographs from beginning to end. Tax clearance certificates, this is another thing that can actually hold you up, and it can take forever to get these. Evidence. If you can get as much historical evidence before you're into the project. This particular plan from 1939 helped when with the reconstruction of a doorway. You can see that this had to be reconstructed, and here is the final doorway. So it's important to get as much information as you can. These are fantastic drawings from 1802, Captain Sir William Smith, and his drawings are really accurate because he was a naval draftsman, and if we compare it with photographs, we can actually see the crevices on the rocks match up with photographs today. And here we see the round tower, which was missing, and this goes towards the accuracy of the Hollers Parsons map, and there we have another one. And that one we can also use. That was the castle, the keep and the round tower in 2011. What was really crucial was when we needed to restore the round tower, National Monuments and our conservation architect asked for photographic evidence. The round tower collapsed in 1950. And ironically, this was in one of the McGlinchey magazines, but not the Carrickabraghy edition. And it was great to find this, and this was proof to National Monuments. So this was vital evidence. Here is our lead archaeologist just before his preliminary investigation. You can see what a dreadful state the castle was in. And this is the scaffolding erected in 2012. If this hadn't been erected in 2012 with the steel beams, it's unlikely that the winter of 2012-2013 the castle would have survived. And here we have a very majestic site, and we also have the other benefit of a fabulous blowhole there, and which comes into effect twice a day when the tide comes in. And there's one of those essential steel beams. You see what I mean about photographing absolutely everything. The local construction team was led by building contractor John Docherty and stonemason Seamus Docherty. Now, whilst both of them were used to working with traditional stone structures, they had no prior experience of conservation repair work or the use of lime mortar. The builder was instructed with assistance from the project team to develop the skills and knowledge that were needed to tackle the project, and they are now working on other conservation projects. So that was they were using up to 5 different lime mortars each day. There we have the archaeological team, and again we were able to employ about 4 local archaeologists. We have John Hegarty to the right and Rosemary Molden to the right, and some of the archaeological finds, and the uncovering of the 17th century courtyard When this was being uncovered, I felt as I was in an episode of The Time team. I don't know if you remember the Channel 4. It was absolutely fascinating. And the unfortunate thing about this is we only have photographs because this had to be covered up in case it would be destroyed. And these Iberian shards appear to be part of an amphora generally used to store wine and olives. And it's suspected that these came from the Trinidad Balancera, which is one of the largest Spanish Armada ships, and went down in Kinigo Bay about 20 miles round the coast from Carrickabraghy. It was armed with guns and loaded with supplies for the planned invasion of England. There is documentary evidence that part of the cargo from the Trinidad Balancera was taken to Carrickabraghy Castle. I think it's lovely that they were enjoying olives and drinking fine wine at Carrickabraghy Castle long before we would have thought. Just see. Here we have the archaeology team. We actually decided that we would carry on with phase 2. And the reason we decided to carry on with phase 2 was that we had the scaffolding in place, and it would be cheaper and easier all round on our budget if we carried on to phase 2. And we mightn't have had the will to carry on after we completed the keep. The wall was restored to match measured and photographic records, as I talked about earlier. Further information in relation to the line and depth of the wall was stabilised by archaeological excavation, which involved the removal of fallen stones to be used in the reconstruction work. And here you see them there. And there I am. I've got a white hat, which I was told meant I was the boss. And I'm with the builder, the conservation architect. He's also got another white hat, and the archaeologist. It was important that at least one or two members visited the site in order to build a relationship with the project team. And I think that paid benefits at the end of the day. And here we have scaffolding round the tower. And I love this. With all the technology we have, nothing beats a piece of string for measuring the circumference. Towards the end of the project, it was felt, and you'll be asked to do this, that an interpretive sign should be erected that reflected the importance of the conservation work carried out and the historical significance of Carrickabraghy Castle. The sign was designed to withstand the inclement weather at Carrickabraghy as well as any threat of vandalism for a period of 10 years. Also, the narrative has to be in Irish and English, so it was quite a tough job. The interpretive sign was positioned just below the castle, and whilst the sign concentrated on the history and the photos of the castle before conservation, the positioning of the sign allows visitors to see the before and after. The Society felt that a threefold brochure, which I hope all of you have, should be produced, and it gives a synopsis of the history of the castle and the conservation work. That brochure is hopefully all over the world, and it's in our local hotels, in a show on tourism and other tourist attractions. Just to remind you what the castle looked like before conservation, and here we have the castle at the early part of 2014. Here we have some of the committee. There's Marius with the beard on the left-hand side, and there we have it with the blowhole going in full spate. And I think the thing you'll always notice, the sun always shines in Inishowen. It's a magnet for photographers, and especially the last few years, the Aurora Borealis has been very kind and made an appearance. And this photograph is by local photographer Brendan Diver, and it was great to see it appearing on the RTE News. The real icing on the cake was when President Michael D. Higgins accepted our invitation to visit Carrickabraghy in September 2014. And there I am at the interpretive sign explaining how the castle would have looked. And there we have our chair at the time, Marius Harkin. There we have the school children and waving their flags with the security detail, the CIA man in front. And there we have the proud members of Carrickabraghy Castle Committee and two of the owners with the President. Our chair, Marius Harkin, retired from Carrickabraghy, and he has now gone on to chair St Columba's Church, and they'll be applying for leader funding, and that's just round the corner. Things I wish I'd known: budgets, archaeological reports and conservation reports. I didn't realise how much they would be. A gate and grills. The name of our society, it's all about conservation, it's not about restoration. And I wish we'd use social media a bit more. Another thing, if you're spending a lot of money, maybe the contractors, whatnot, you could do with doing credit checks. This didn't apply in our case, but it can apply in other cases. If you would, if I just say that the castle has now been preserved for future generations. It is a microcosm of Irish history where school children can be brought and told about their ancestors. Apart from the social, cultural and educational value to the local community, it is a great tourist attraction. Fáilte Ireland has identified cultural tourism as one of the most important factors in attracting tourists to Ireland, who will not only spend more, but they will also stay longer in the place they are visiting. Carrickabraghy Restoration Society feels that Carrickabraghy Castle will become a landmark site for international and local visitors alike, wishing to see more of the built heritage of Inishowen. Finally, share the pain and the joy. Talk to others who have been through this process if you're just thinking of embarking. And can I encourage you to, if you're in Donegal, visit the Jewel in the Crown, which is Inishowen and Carrickabraghy. Thank you very much.